Good morning, everyone. Hi. So I am going to start today. What are biomes? What are the different types of biomes, and how are they able to support each other? How are different biomes able to support a variety of organisms? So as you might be knowing, there are 6 different types of biomes, right? And these 6 different biomes each have its own characteristics, meaning that they have their own organisms. They have this, a group of animals that live there. There are a group of plants that are there, and microscopic organisms that can be there. And this is all based on what? Two things: temperature and rainfall. So the more the temperature is, the more the rainfall is, or the less the temperature is and the less the rainfall is. That is how the biomes are categorized. Okay. Now, as we move down, you can learn more about what other biomes, how are they interacting, and everything like that. Now, if you see here, there are a few pictures that are here. Now, if you look into the pictures, right, each picture is different from the other, and each one, each one is shown as a biome. So this one here with the mountains and big tall trees, there, that is one biome. This one here with all orange color and a little bit of reddish trees are all again different set of biomes. And then there's one more picture which shows a variety of plants, and then they are also a set of biome. So these 3 pictures show you how biomes look like. Now, if I were to observe these biomes and I were to ask everyone to write some of the points that you have observed in each, the differences between these 3 pictures, how would you do it? So I have put it in here. Once you finish writing your answers, you can look through if yours and mine matches. So here are some things that I noticed. The trees in each picture look different. The pictures with the mountains have trees that are tall and pointy, like Christmas trees. Leaves have fallen. See, if you see here, up here, you can see that the leaves are all fallen, are going to fall in the oranges trees, right? So they're all about to fall, which means that you are having the winter is approaching and things like that, right? Which generally happens in deciduous forests. So, and then you see here where there are different variety of trees, and they're all in different levels, and they are, they're all green. They're still green in color, not like the other picture here, which is orangish in color. So we can think, hey, each picture is taken in different places. They're not of the same place, right? Because if you see the picture number 2 here is orangish in color, but the picture number 3 is completely green and flushed green. So they all are taken in different places, from different biomes. Different biomes, all the 6 biomes are spread out in different areas. So if you talk about, if you talk about tropical forest, you can see that they have, we identified tropical forest, number 1 here, 2 here, and 3 here. Now if you see the globe, the entire Earth is being divided into polar region, and then there is temperate, tropical region. The equator line passes through it, and tropical region, and again temperate region. So if you see, this is how our Earth looks like, right? And the most important part is each part has different set of temperatures, different temperature, not different temperature, different kind, different rainfall, and their climate will also be different, right, from one another. So that's something which you have to understand. And from moving forward, we'll see how these biomes change. Why is that each biome is different from each other? It's because of 2 reasons. One is the temperature, and the second one is due to rainfall. So the more the temperature or the less the temperature, the more the rainfall or the less the rainfall is what the ecosystem is, or the biome is made up of. Okay, now you can see there's an equator here. What is an equator? It's just an imaginary line drawn around the Earth equally distance from between the poles, dividing the Earth into northern and southern hemisphere. So for you to be making more simpler, it is just an imaginary line that runs around the Earth. Okay, what is it used for? It's an imaginary line to determine the north and the southern hemisphere. Okay, and the equator, where the equator is, that latitude is always 0 degree latitude. Okay, so this is just an extra information, just because we need to know what an equator is. Okay, so if you have any questions, always write it in the chat box. Now, again, as I said, the biomes are always based on two things, based on the temperature and the rainfall. Okay, so if you see, this is the area where equator is passing through. Closer to the equator, it will be always hot and wet. So when it is always closer to the equator, it is always hot and it's always wet. Just north and south of the equator, it is always hot and dry. So south of the equator, it's always hot and dry. Okay, move a little further north or south, it begins to become colder and wet. Just north or south, it's cool, it's cooler and dry. So based on the equator, we can actually try to figure out what the temperature and climate of a place would look like. Now let's go to what is a biome. So we are talking about biome, right? These additional information that I gave you are just for you to understand and start the process of thinking. So what is a biome? A biome is a group of ecosystems with similar climates that cover a large section of a land. So if you take one biome, that biome will have a group of ecosystems. So they'll have so many ecosystems which will all have the same climate, and it will cover a large part of the land. Okay, different biomes support different types of organisms, and there are 6 different biomes. So all the biomes, they support different plants, different animals that I just finished talking about in an earlier slide. They all support different animals, different plants, different microscopic organisms, and their climate will also be different. So what are the different 6 biomes, right? So we have coniferous forest, we have deciduous forest, we have deserts, grassland, rainforest, right? We also have shrublands and tundra. So all these 6 major biomes are actually what our entire planet is looking like. Okay, so here tropical forest, grasslands, that is savanna and the prairies, the desert, deciduous forest, boreal, coniferous forest, or the taiga. This all called, it has the same, they have different terms, but they're all the same. And then the tundra, right? Every place in the world fits into one of these biomes. So if you look at any place, it has to either fit, excuse me, it has to either fit tropical rainforest, grassland, tundra, deciduous forest, coniferous, a taiga, or tundra. Okay. Now, we'll move to the next one. Now, adaptations. And what is an adaptation? Adaptation is the change in the organism for it to survive. Simplest definition would be that. And to adapt is to change depending upon what you need to be, what has to be done. So if an adaptation is a characteristic that an organism has that allows it to be able to survive. So if, for example, you have an organism X, and the organism has to get food by digging or drilling deep into the earth for its food. So now what does the organism have to do? Initially, it will try to get into the mode of trying to dig, and eventually, it's not just 1 day or 2 days work. It is eventually the organism will adapt, or change its structure in such a way that it can till further down. This is just an example I'm giving you. We'll go and see as we do. We can see the adaptations in plants, the adaptations in birds, the adaptations in animals that has happened over the course of time. Okay. So again, an adaptation is a characteristic that an organism has that allows it to be able to survive. Organisms that live in different biomes have adaptations to climate of that biome. So whichever biome it is adapting, right? Whichever biome is adapting, whichever biome is changing to get into that, it will always have the climate and it will always get adjusted to the climate and the biome of that area. Okay, now let's see. Here there is a plant. What is that plant? Everybody should be knowing at this point what the plant is. It's a cactus plant, right? So the waxy leaves on the cacti, dry climate, it's always in the dry climate. Why is that? You have the, see, every other leaf when you see it's very smooth, broad, right? However, in cactus plants, they are spiky, and there's not the real kind of leaves. There's some shape of leaves, but then on the leaves there are spiky things. So these are the adaptations to actually not, let go of the water from the plant. So it uses very minimum amount of water and it retains the water in the spiky needles. Okay, so and that is that is why that is an adaptation of the cactus. So now if you look up with the polar bear, right? The polar bear, for it to survive in the cold climate, what does it have to do? It has to have the fluffy white fur. But beneath the fluffy white fur, there is something called blubber. There's a small, like how if you see the wrapping package, where you see the bubble kind of wrapping, which they send along with the any glass utensils that you have purchased, right? So this blubber or the bubble kind of structure, which actually protects or gives extra amount of heat to the polar bear. Did you see how the adaptation has happened? Because the polar bear cannot survive in extremely cold climates, it has to adapt the fluffy fur. And it's not just the polar bear, any animal that is in the very cold area or cold biome, they have to adapt according to the situation and change their body and requirements. So if they need more amount of heat, they have to have the blubber, which will help them actually protect from the extreme cold. The falling of the leaves. The falling of the leaves is also a change in the climate. Because of the change in the climate, the trees have to adopt dormancy, right? It will fall, let go of all the leaves, and then wait for the actual season to come up to further get into new, which is spring, right? With new leaves, and the plant will again reboot itself. So these are all the variety of adaptations. There are many more. We can talk as we go down. Okay. Tropical rainforest. This is one of the biomes, right? Tropical rainforest. It's closest to the equator, and hence the climate is hot and wet. Now, humidity and heat, lots of decay, nutrition. So these are the points which, when we talk about tropical rainforest, these are the points that you have to consider. It is close. A, it is closest to the equator. B, it is always hot and wet. Lot of decay happens there because the leaves fall down, and hence the soil is very nutrient and fertile. A lot of rain, lots of plants, and lots of animals. Most diverse of all the biomes. So tropical rainforest has a lot of animals, lot of animals that if you want to see a variety of animals, you can actually go to the tropical rainforest and figure out all the different varieties of animals. And the trees, they're all tall, they try to close in. So you have a lot of leaves falling down. The land is, the soil is very nutrient because the leaves decay and the nutrients are formed again in the soil. So tropical rainforest is actually more than half of the world's species are found in the tropical rainforest. Rainforest adaptations. Now let's just look into the adaptations of the rainforest. There are larger trees. They grow on other plants. Roots can grow above the ground, which means they are shallow, so they grow above the ground. Large layered growth, that is canopy. So in rainforest, there's one small thing that is actually causing the more amount of leaves to fall down, is because there are trees. If you look at this picture here, there are trees which are small. They are still growing, but then these are covered by the taller trees. So when sunlight comes, for example, if you think that there's a sun here, if the sunlight comes, the sunlight is directly hitting the taller trees. So they are always healthy and growing for the taller and healthier. But the trees at the bottom, they try to get decayed. These decayed trees are further going into the ground, and they produce more amount of nutrients. That is why the soil is very healthy. The soil has a lot of nutrients. The trees can actually grow well, but not all the trees grow. The trees that are so there is a competition between among the trees itself. The trees that are tall, have broad leaves, can actually grasp more amount of sunlight as compared to any of them that is on the bottom of the tree, which are very small and they are covered by the other trees. So that's that part. So if you see here the forest floor, so that's the forest floor. This is the understory, the canopy, and then the emergent layer. So this is the layer that will have nice flushed sunlight, they can produce their food, and they're always healthy. They're growing taller and taller. The forest floor, however, has a lot of struggle. The understory too might get sunlight here and there. Canopy is still much better, but the emergent plants at the top are very, very healthier. Now, when you look at the animal side, they always camouflage. They are poisonous because they have to survive, right? To attack other creatures and try to stay steady, they have to be poisonous. They are brightly colored, specialized features for eating different foods. So if you see here, this bird here has a beak which can grab insects, right? So it depends upon different variety of the way they have to adapt. So adaptation is a huge part in all the animals and birds and all the organisms, depending upon what they have to do to survive. The other biome is savanna grassland. The savanna grassland is over here, yeah, in India, so Africa and continent, and then there's a little bit in almost near Australia. So we see the savanna grassland is there. What are the, let's talk about the climate of savanna. It's hot, dry, and wet. There are two seasons there, summer and winter. Dry in winter and wet in summer. It's never cold in savanna. So savanna is a spot where if you want to go and enjoy, you can have a winter climate, and you can also have summer, and you can also, you can enjoy. It's not extremely cold. I mean, of course, there are people who enjoy extreme cold too, but I'm just in general, it's very good tourist spot. Savannah Grassland is tourist spot where you can always go and see different varieties of animals, and have the experience of being with the big, huge animals, and looking into the nature in a more detailed way. So most of the vegetation is what is the most of vegetation in savanna? It's always tall grasses. So you can see more of bison, zebra, all these kind of large, huge animals, and very few trees. So there are a lot of grasses, like the prairies, right? It's almost like prairie, tall grasses, with few amount of huge trees. Now, let's talk about the adaptations in savanna. Plants have long roots. They have long roots. They have bulb roots. So for storage. Why do we have bulb roots? Bulb roots are actually succulent roots, which means that they store their food in the root, and then when it's dormancy, they stay there as is, and come spring again, they start growing. So bulb roots, or the storage root, are also called as succulent roots. These roots are actually storing their food in the form of the bulb, okay, which are actually roots, and then they actually um, grow back when spring comes. So that's one of the adaptations of that. And then they have thick barks. Look at the bark here. They are very extremely thick barks and small leaves. They have small leaves and thick barks. Okay. So savanna adaptations, they have tall roots. The bulb roots are storage roots, which are succulent roots, and they have thick barks, and they have small leaves. So that's how they adapt to their climate. Well, let's talk about what animals do. Do they do the same? No, they migrate. They have migratory behavior, which means that they migrate if they feel that this particular spot is right now too hot, and they would migrate, they would move to another place. Then some animals will have a burrow, which means they'll dig deep down into the earth, and they'll be dormant, meaning that they will not do any activities. So before the dormancy comes, they will take care of all the necessary things that they need, like the food. They collect a lot of food and they put it in their burrow, so that during the winter they don't have to hunt for food, or everything is ready, and they are under dormancy meaning that there's no much of activities. Okay. And the next kind of adaptation which they do in savanna is to camouflage. So they always camouflage. The word camouflage meaning to try to hide within the colors of the nature, so that the predators do not catch them. So that is called camouflage. So I hope it's clear. Then you have desert. Then extreme desert conditions are hot and dry, very little amount of rain, and then least diverse biome. So it's not much happening there in the deserts. There's just few animals, and then there's no rain, and it's extremely hot and dry. A limited amount of plants and very few large animals. So generally we see the Mexican desert. We can also see the Australian desert, and you can, all these places, Arizona, the California, Baja, they're all the places where it is extremely hot. Now let's see the desert adaptations. Let's talk about animals first. They have burrow again, as we talked about it. Animals will have burrow. They will be safe and sound, dig deep into the earth, and they will be protected burrow. They are nocturnal, okay, and then inactive during the day. So they are mostly inactive during, they are always inactive during the day because they know it's very extremely hot, less amount of water, there are not much of trees to actually protect them from the extreme heat. So they're always active at night, not much of activities happening during the day. Now for plants, again, the same thing, low to the ground. They just be on the lower level of the ground. They are having, like how I talked about cactus in the earlier slide. They are thick, waxy leaves stored with water. Again, succulent. When you say succulent, anything that has food in their parts of plant, like roots, leaves. If they're thick leaves, that means that they have enough amount of water stored, food material stored in the thick leaf waxy leaves. If it is in the roots, they have a lot of amount of food and water stored, so that when the actual time comes, they can be used, or it can grow back. Okay. For example, the lily, during the winter, the roots of the lily are succulent, so they store enough amount of food in their roots, and they are dormant. So as soon as spring comes, the root starts growing back, and then the root starts becoming activated, and the stem starts shooting up, and you have again a new fresh lily plant coming up. Right? We don't have to do anything. It just grows over and over again. Each season, during the spring it comes back. During the winter it just goes dead, but the succulent root is always there inside the soil, ready to be activated the next spring. Now when we talk about prairies or the grassland, so the prairie and the grassland, the climate is moderate temperature and intermediate rainfall. That means there is rainfall, but not as the rainforest. Okay, so it is moderate temperature and intermediate rainfall. More than the desert, but less than the deciduous forest. So deciduous forest, we have a lot of rainfalls, but and here it is less than the deciduous forest. And the prairies have moderate temperature and intermediate rainfall. They have tall and short grasses. Prairies are full of grasses, so it's prairie land, and a very few amount of trees. Generally, large part of the United States, including parts of Texas, is all with tall and short grasses, and so they are prairies there. Prairie grasslands are all found in this area of United States. Now, let's see the adaptation for prairies, right? Again, let's start with animals first. Again, the same thing. They use burrows. They're nocturnal, which means their activities are more towards the night than towards the day. They camouflage, which means that they have their colors get adapted to the color of the nature, so that when any hunters or predators are coming to attack them, they can hide within their color. And then there are grazers. That means most of the animals are just graze around, and then have the grass as their food. For plants, small leaves, widespread, deep root. So the roots are very deep. Excuse me, they are deep down. They're spread wide, and they also have bulbs. Again, succulent plants, they'll have bulbs so that they can store their food. Let's talk about deciduous forest. So deciduous forest, the climate is moderate temperature, and they have moderate temperature and the rainfall, with 4 distinct seasons. So here we have 4 distinct seasons. In deciduous forest, we have 4 distinct seasons. That means we have cold winters, we have warm summers, we have mid fall and the spring climates. So that is good that we have the deciduous forest as a variety of you know seasons, and based on that we have variety of plants too. We have different colors, that um, during the fall we have different variety of colored plants that are almost ready to lose their leaves, right? And it is a nice nice scenery. We have a nice scenery to see if we have in those places like deciduous places, all colorful trees, colorful during the fall, and then as it becomes more colder, the leaves just go dropping down, and then we have just the stem standing out there waiting for the spring to happen, right? So deciduous forest is a forest where we have four different seasons, and the climate goes from cold winter to warm summer, and then mild spring, mild fall to spring climates. So the trees, what we have, we can see variety of trees like oak, maple, birch, right? We have variety of trees in this forest too. And generally it's in the eastern side of the United States, which means from Florida all the way we can go to Washington D.C. It's this area where you see that there's a lot of fall trees that are changing their colors, and the scenery is a scenic place, right? So it's very nice to see all these colors when you go through the scenic areas. Deciduous forest adaptations. Now let's see. Animals hibernate, which means they go to sleep for the entire for the entire season, and then they come back during the spring. They become very active during the spring and start doing their normal functions, which they do. Then they're nocturnal, which means again they just only we are very active only during the night. And they camouflage again, which means that based upon their color, they hide with the nature's color so that the predators do not come and attack them. Now leaves, let's see with the leaves. Loose leaves will keep falling down. So obviously in the deciduous forest, since there is a part of the season where its climate is cold, at that time the leaves start falling down, dropping down, and then the stem stays by itself and waiting for the spring to come. At that time what is happening, the roots actually store all the food materials that is needed for the next spring, and when the next spring comes it automatically reboosts itself. We don't have to do anything, it reboosts itself and then gets back into active mode. So again, we can see a healthy plant growing back. And the leaves are very large leaves for all the deciduous plants. Generally the leaves are very large branches and the thick barks, which means that stem is very thick, because it has to survive the winter, right? So it has this, the barks are very thick. The leaves, they lose leaves during the fall, but then that's not a problem because they actually hibernate system. They just keep themselves calm and quiet, and during spring they reboost itself and the tree again gets into the growth mode. Coniferous forest. This is a forest. If you look at this, it's extremely cold temperatures over there, right? And so it's winters are extremely cold, and then dominant trees are always Christmas corn bearing trees, like the Christmas trees. That's the evergreen trees, which means they're all spiky, the leaves are all spiky so that they can reduce the amount of water that is going out of the leaves. So like Christmas trees, and it's generally seen in Canada and Russia. Now the adaptations, again, they migrate, they hibernate, they camouflage, and extra fat. They actually have extra fat, which is given to them in the form of blubber, right? Again, I talked to you earlier about it too. A blubber is nothing but, if you see the wrapping materials, the small bubble kind of things that you see, that's how their body, the body of the bear or all the other animals that require extra fat is being made of. Okay, so they have the extra amount of heat to protect them with the help of the blubber. When you look at the plants, however, they're all cone-shaped plants, waxy leaves, small leaves, or thick barks. So this helps them to actually adapt to the extreme cold climates. Tundra again is cold and dry, the cold desert, treeless biome. So here it's not much of trees, limited plants and animals, and permafrost, layers of frozen soil. So here the soil is also extremely frozen, and it generally happens to the north and south of the equator. I hope so far everything is clear. It's pretty clear with the illustrations and the notes. So all I want you guys to do is to go back and revise, so that way you will have also an understanding of this, and this PowerPoint can always be viewed back if you want any help regarding the different varieties of biomes. Now let's go to Tundra adaptations. They again the same thing, because Tundra is extremely cold place. They have to have camouflage. They migrate sometimes from different to different places, and plants are very just low to the ground. They're bunches. They're dark colored, right? And then how do biomes support a variety of organisms? They each have distinct climates that plants and animals are specifically adapted to. Without special adaptations, some animals cannot survive in other places. For example, if I take a polar bear, or let's say we take a penguin, and then I put it in the deciduous forest. So deciduous forest, where during the fall the climate changes, but the rest of the year you have nice amount of sunlight, and you have rainfall here and there. Will the penguin survive? No, it will not, because it is being taken away from its biome and is being put into a different place, so which it cannot adapt to. So adaptations are based on what the animal or organism needs for it to survive. Okay, because some biomes share similar climates, species can overlap, and thus there are no real boundaries for biomes. So nobody has an ability to go or draw a line to say this biome stays in this area, or that biome stays in that area. We cannot do that. We can definitely do for the maps in the showing that this is Boston, this is Virginia, this is, so we can do that. But here for biomes we cannot, because the animals might overlap. You can see a fox in deciduous forest, right? You can also see a fox in any other biome too. So like a prairie, you can see a fox there. So they can be overlapped, because some biomes share the same similar climate species. They can overlap. There's no real boundaries. Okay, and as humans continue to manipulate landscapes, these boundaries continue to change. So we as human beings, we try to modify our landscapes depending upon our needs, right? So based on that, what is happening each time we try to modify the landscape does get modified, and then it either gets extended or cut off for the animals. So we are, so for example, right, we always try to trim all the trees. Deforestation is a main huge example. So when you do deforestation, what is happening? We are generally trying to change the biome where the plants are there, and also the most animals too, right? There are bunnies, there are deers, there are so many things in the biome that we are trying to change the surroundings. So the change in landscape is a continuous process, which cannot be stopped unless human beings try to have a boundary put together. But these boundaries always overlap because of the usage of our different, because of the usage and the needs that we need to do for our survival. So we are also adapting things depending upon what we need, right? So based on the climate and based on how different organisms are put together is what we see in our nature. Um, and here is what you need to know about biomes. So I hope everybody understood we what we talked about today. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for listening to the video. I hope you learn and succeed. Thank you.